All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 366 of the Restoring Rapport podcast. I'm super excited for the content we got planned out for you guys today, as always. This is a podcast for young believers who are pursuing the goal of marriage and family, trying to get married as young as possible in a healthy way, according to God's design. My name is Seth. I come on twice a week, every week on Thursday and Sunday to discuss not only the benefits of getting married young, but I try to equip and encourage you in your pursuit of that goal. And today we're going to be continuing our review of Jordan Peterson's marriage series. And the reason I'm trying to get these all done in a row is because I'm currently subscribed to the Daily Wire. And so while my subscription lasts, I would like to review this content all at once, because once my subscription goes away, I will not be able to see it anymore. And so I subscribe to this so that you don't have to. If you have not listened to the first episode review, go back and listen to the last 4 or 5 episodes. We took plenty of episodes to review Jordan Peterson's first lecture on marriage, chapter 1 of his lecture on marriage. This is chapter 2. It's entitled Negotiation. But before you listen to this, go back and listen to the episodes where we covered the first part of his marriage series. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in.
Society is hierarchically and incrementally structured if it's structured properly. And by properly, I mean in a non-tyrannical manner that doesn't require compulsion, that isn't an analog of the Tower of Babel. It's an alternative that's modeled symbolically by both Mount Sinai and by the Ark of the Covenant, which is something, if you're more interested in, we'll cover in the Exodus seminar. So imagine that you're nested inside sequence of social organizations, and that the integrity of the state constitutes the proper functioning of that entire sequence of nested interactions. And so there's you and the community that's you that extends across time. And so that unites you with the community right at the base, right at the core of your being. And then there's you and your wife or husband. That's the fundamental social dyad. And that's the bedrock, the foundation stone of society. And it's partly the foundation stone of society because society involves more than one person. And society is the negotiated, productive, generous, peaceful solution to mutual being. And so it's not just a metaphor that marriage is the bedrock of society. It's no, it's actually the bedrock of society. And so then you might say, well, how do you construe that relationship if it's optimized? We talked a little bit earlier about the idea of you both being subordinate to the divine word. And so we could say, well, say you have to negotiate with your partner. Well, why? Well, you have to live with them. So what are the possible states of being?
I think what he's going to say here is basically you've got two options when you are living with somebody. You can either live with them in a happy way, a peaceful way, a way that leads to life on both sides, a way where both sides are, enjoying one another insofar as it's possible, or you can live in a state of constant strife, looking out for your own personal interests and ambitions and trying to make sure your needs get met and not caring anything about your partner. And what you get in that second scenario is, kind of a miserable relationship. And the reason that some people do it is they're unwilling to mature and think about someone else beyond themselves. And so they're always fighting for what they want. They're always fighting for what, their interests in the marriage instead of, basically becoming mature enough to do exactly what Scripture tells us to do. And that's lay our life down for one another. Greater love has no man than this, than he who lays down his life for his friends, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Okay, that's a very scriptural principle, and you're even more commanded to do so more. Love your wife as Christ loved the church in the Bible, as Paul tells you. And so this is not some living arrangement where you are battling against the person you are one with in order to try and get what you individually want. That's not what marriage is. Marriage is you fighting for another person, trying to make another person comfortable, and kind of that wrestling going on there. He's going to talk a lot about that probably later in this video, but marriage is kind of forced maturity, because if you make it work, if you don't just divorce and take the easy way out, if you make it work, you can either live in misery with one another and remain selfish, fighting for what you want, or you can mature and start fighting for the union, the oneness, and trying to preserve the peace and the connection and the harmony and the stability of the relationship and the connection instead, then you're going to have a much better time. Okay. That's kind of your two options. You can either live, be happy in your marriage by maturing, or you can remain unhappy in your marriage by staying selfish. Those are kind of the two options I think he's kind of highlighting for you here. And by the way, as we've reviewed his articles here, I've been reading this book by Brad Wilcox called Get Married, and he has what he calls the enhancement in the front of that book, and it is this awesome PDF that I have been going through with you guys that has very simple charts. Well, sometimes they're not simple, but it has very good data showing, comparing single people to married people, comparing happy marriages to sad marriages, comparing marriages with frequent sexual intimacy compared to marriages without it, comparing even marriage with other forms of romantic living situations like cohabiting or dating. And so I've really loved going through this data with you, and I'm kind of measuring what Dr. Peterson says here against the data that Brad Wilcox has in this book. Really, really cool book. Would recommend you read this if you're interested in the topic. I've really enjoyed it, and I love that I can actually give you guys data that's easy to see, or I should say easier to see than some of the other data I've given you in the past. Especially, I don't like just putting hyperlinks in my podcast show notes because nobody ever clicks those, and you never actually get to see the studies and the double-blind studies and articles that I'm peer-reviewed articles that I'm showing you. And so if you're interested in those, definitely check out the show notes. Yes, but also now you could do it on YouTube. Please go to YouTube and subscribe to the show. Just search Seth Hensley and look at all the content that we're putting out there. I think I'm the only Seth Hensley on YouTube that's uploading, twice a week, or that's uploading as much as I am, 2 episodes every week. On YouTube is actually just 1 episode a week, and I usually have it long form instead of short form because I like long form YouTube videos because I like to just play it while I'm doing other things. So hopefully you like that as well. But let's go ahead and continue what he's saying here, and I'll go through Brad Wilcox's stats that come up as he's talking and show you kind of what he's talking about.
Well, one of you can tell the other one what to do, and the other one can submit under force. So that's tyranny or slavery. It can be completely anarchic so that neither of you ever know what the hell's going on or which way's up or which way's down. And so that's the desert, that's utter chaos. So you have tyranny and slavery, you have utter chaos, or you have logos-guided negotiation, dialogue. So we can unpack the nature of the logos. So the first thing is that the logos, the spirit which you embody, is properly oriented towards love and life more abundant.
And that's very scriptural language that he's using there. Christ has come that we may have life and have it to the full. And also something that I wanted to highlight there, he said that it's the logos guided negotiation is dialogue. And he's talking about that's just a bunch of, Jordan Peterson talks fancy. He just does. But I think what he's getting at there is the importance of having 2 voices kind of wrestling with one another and submitting to one another rather than trampling over one another and asserting authority and power over one another without taking the other into consideration. So like in scripture, we're told to submit to one another. That's presented as this awesome thing where believers are told to submit to one another and love each other as Christ loved the church. And so both of those things are very hard to do. But what happens when you do that, when you say, hey, I'm not going to storm over what you're saying here. I'm not going to, assert what I want. I'm going to have the attitude of Jesus and say, not my will, but your will. That it really leads to not only a more peaceful interaction, but it strengthens your connection because the other person feels like, oh my gosh, this person that I'm married to, this person I'm one with is actually on my team. They're fighting for me. They're protecting me. They're protecting our connection. They're protecting our union. They're not just out for what they want. Okay. They're not out for their selfish interests and ambitions. And we all have those. And I'm not saying, that you can, I'm not ever saying you'll be perfect at suppressing those in favor of submitting to your partner. I'm just saying that when you submit to your partner, there's positive fruit from that, right? And by the fruit, you know the tree. Okay. And if a marriage is producing good fruit, I would argue that marriage has a lot of really good submission and respect and love going on between the partners, because their connection is strengthened by that, and so that marriage is producing good fruit. And I would define good fruit as, a lot of affection between the parties, an absence of strife and discord and disunity between the parties, children who are flourishing, a relationship that is abundant, not just, has sexual intimacy present, but abundant in physical intimacy, a relationship where both parties, both the man and the woman, are praising each other publicly and privately, a relationship where people admire both the man and the woman and how they interact with one another. Those are some positive fruits that I think come from this concept that he's talking about right here. He says dialogue should be properly oriented towards love and life more abundant. The way I'm trying to say that here is that you need to be looking out for your partner and the preservation of the union above your own selfish interests, and making sure that's happening. Because if you don't, and the times in my marriage where I haven't done this have been the struggle times. Okay. When I'm fighting for what I want more than the strength and health of my union with Lainey, those are the times where things fall apart. If I'm fighting for the strength of my union with Lainey and making sure and putting her first, laying my life down for her as Christ laid his life down for the church, then the fruit of my marriage is better. Okay. And I think that's what he's getting at here. And that's something definitely for you to take into consideration as a young person moving towards the goal of marriage and family, is you gotta be able to put your partner first. You got to be able to submit. You got to be able to lay your life down. You got to be able to pick up your cross, whatever language you want to use, in favor of keeping this union whole and following the will of God. That's how I would say it. So definitely, just it's a learning curve. Obviously, it's a process, but in as much as you can do that, you're going to start seeing really good fruit from your marriage.
So imagine that you love your partner, and maybe they love you back, and maybe you can each love yourselves to some degree as a consequence of that reflection. And so what does love mean? It means something like, if I would like for you to have what was best for you, if I could only conceptualize that and bring it into being, that's what I want. And so when you're negotiating with your partner, you want to put that frame of mind in place. I want the best. I don't know what the best is because I'm ignorant and steeped in sin, but I'm willing to lift up my eyes and to try to at least figure out what it might be. But to the degree that I'm wise enough to understand it, that's what I'm going to aim for. And then I'm going to tell you the truth. Painful as it's going to be, annoying as it's going to be, risking the chance that you'll turn away in contempt and disgust and be appalled, I'm still going to tell you the truth.
Okay. He said a lot of really good stuff there. Namely, I think the big thing that he's talking about here is, I think we could all benefit from a dose of humility and just recognize that sometimes first of all of the time, we are not the authority on truth. So Jesus says in John that he is the way, the truth, and the life, that no one comes to the Father except through him. He's making an extremely strong claim there that he is the truth, he is the way, he is the life. That is not us. Okay, I would argue as a show for young believers. If you disagree, obviously, not interested in arguing with you on that here. What I am interested in doing is, for people that benefit from my words, I'm interested in helping them. And I think some really good fruit that will come from the humility of knowing that you're not the source of truth, that you don't know everything, and that you're not always right, would really benefit your marriage. Okay. The marriage, when I see people who, let's make this personal, in my own marriage and in the marriages that I've seen in my life, if I see people who really think that they're right and that their partner is wrong, there's a disconnect there, because your partners, right? We use that word, your partners, you're on the same team, you're moving in the same direction, you're helping one another towards a goal, you're not hindering one another, pulling different directions, you're yoked, right? If you're actually partners, there shouldn't be that I'm right, you're wrong thing. But yet there often is in marriages, there's that I'm right, you're wrong thing, and I've just got to kind of guide you to the truth because I really am the we would never say it like this, but I know what truth is. I know it better than you, and I'm the ultimate authority on truth, right? And you're right, you're wrong here. And so I've just got to somehow open your eyes to that fact. When we have that attitude, that abundance of pride and not that abundance of humility, then there's going to be some discord. There's going to be some strife. There's going to be some fighting. If we have the attitude instead of Christ is the truth, Christ is the authority, Christ is the only person who knows every answer and is exactly right on every issue, and I'm just serving the truth, whatever that is, whatever Christ wants for our marriage, whatever Jesus would do in this situation, I believe is the truth. Okay. And I'm trying to do to my very best. And I'm not saying that I know exactly what Jesus would do in every situation. I'm not saying that I'm as perfect as Jesus in every situation. I'm not saying that, you know, you do not have, you're not guided by the Holy Spirit, and I am, and I know better than you, and I'm a better source of the truth in this situation. But I am saying that I'm serving whatever the truth is, I'm serving it, and I'm trying to figure that out with you. I think that is a really good attitude to have, because again, it's humility. It's not saying, let's make this practical. Okay. Let's say there's a fight, or not a fight, but like a tension in the air, about an issue, of where you want to take your marriage, and you seem to be kind of hitting um this this point where you seem to be pulling in a little bit of a different direction, if not polar opposite directions. You're pulling kind of left and she's pulling kind of right, and you're not aligned perfectly on this, whatever issue it is. You got to have the humility to say, we're serving the truth here. I'm not asserting that my understanding and concept of that trumps yours right now, where I'm not demanding that what's the word, that what you're saying has no value and what I'm saying has all the value, and that I'm totally right on every issue. The humility to say that is going to really take the stress out of that situation. I think if you just say things like, I think, or I could be wrong, but, or just letting your partner know somehow that you're not the what's the word, the final source of truth. Okay. I think your marriage is gonna, and again, the submission thing comes in here too. Like, I think when you do get tyrannical, and when you do, treat one another in a manner that Christ would not treat the church, and you treat one another in a manner that is not submissive, that's when you run into marital strife. Like, if I want to go out to eat here, my wife wants to go out to eat here. This is a very, surface level example. And I decide to die on the hill of going out to eat here. Peace is not going to stay in my marriage, because my wife no longer feels like I'm on her team and that I'm on our union's team, but that I'm on my own selfish interests team. Okay. And so, yeah, good luck going into a marriage with that level of pride. And it's the opposite of humility. It's like this selfishness. Okay. It's, you've got to have some selflessness. Okay. He says here that truth serves love. I really like that. I think that, there are a lot of hard conversations that you might need to have in marriage, but I think those can always be done respectfully, number one, peacefully, number two, always respectfully, always peacefully, always having the what's the word, the betterment of your partner and not just your own selfish interests. Okay. That's very important too, that a lot of people don't seem to do in their marriage. And you'll notice whenever that happens, there's a problem. There's some kind of strife. I wish I could give you more practical examples here, but and there are tons of practical examples I could give you. It's just that I'm kind of giving you the 30,000 foot abstract right now. And hopefully the specifics are coming to your mind as you hear what I'm talking about. You're going to hear times where, in your brain, where either you have, pursued your own selfish interests above your partner's, or you've seen that happen in other marriages and witnessed the nuclear explosion, or perhaps the slow decay over time that has resulted from that. But I just want you guys to avoid this insofar as it's possible. Okay. Lay your life down for your partner, submit to your partner, love your partner as Christ loved the church. All those things are very scriptural concepts. So just like all of those things have the common theme of not pursuing what you want, not being the final authority yourself, not being the end all be all final say on every issue, but having the humility and the preference of your partner to produce good fruit, and that is a better connection with your partner. So I definitely think that's true. Let me know if you disagree through the YouTube comments, or if you agree and you've witnessed some sort of fruit from this. Let me know in the YouTube comments. I would love to hear from you. It would make me feel super connected to you, because this is a monologue. Podcasts are, as much as I'd like them to be a dialogue, they are kind of a monologue. So let me know, and let's try to make this a conversation there.
Truth serves love in that context. Now you're negotiating. It's like, okay, what do you negotiate about? In a household, every single thing that you don't want to be a tyrant about, or a slave about, or have chaotic. And that means every single thing. Where the scissors should go in the appliance drawer. That needs to be negotiated. How every room is set up. How every room is decorated. So our house, my house with Tammy, is in pretty good order. I've been trying to clean up my room for like 5 years, and I've realized, especially under the pressure of intense social involvement, that you actually can't clean up your room entirely in isolation, because the world keeps intruding like the snake intrudes on a garden. The world keeps intruding, and so just when I get my life cleaned up, I get a bunch of stuff in the mail, or something goes wrong in the house and there's more stuff piled in my room. And
Entropy. That is so true. Like, something I've noticed about being married, especially in my first year of marriage, is people will give you stuff. Okay, lots of stuff, which is a blessing, right? Okay, it's an awesome thing that you can be grateful for, especially if they're like spending money on you to give you these nice things. That's awesome. But you also there's also this like line. You've got to be able to say no to people who try to kind of encroach and give you stuff that they're just simply trying to get rid of and kind of use you as a garbage bin. So there's like this balance there, right? There's this gratitude. Thank you so much for trying to help me. Also, we don't really need that right now. Thank you so much for offering. There's that thing that comes into play. Okay. And I assume, I'm not a parent yet, but I bet you when I become a parent, it'll prove true in that arena too. It's like, there's a lot of help that people offer. Okay. But you don't, what's the word? Some people are not after your best interest. They're after their own best interest. Okay. And so if you can help them in their journey to A, B, or C, they're going to probably take and take and take from you without really considering the cost of that on you. All right. And so you've got to be able to draw a line and say, actually, my wife and I can't do that, or actually, my family can't do that, or actually, I can't take that from you, or just whatever the issue is. Because entropy is going to happen, okay? There's going to be insertions, all kinds of insertions into your home and into your marriage, and you got to be able to, like, what's the word? Preserve it and make sure it's a good place for your wife, your children, the union. You've got to make sure it's a good place for those things. So yeah, I like that so far.
I've just never quite got it in perfect order. And so one of the reasons I've suggested to people that they try to put one room in perfect order is because that's a practice of perfection. And you'll find that when you do it, so if you're in a family that's chaotic and dysfunctional, as you try to clean up your room, set it in order by your own standards, right? You want everything to be in order by your standards. So you sit in your room and you look around and you think, what bugs me here? What's out of order? What isn't in its proper place? What do I avoid because I don't want to look at? I don't like looking in that sock drawer because it's like got decades old socks and it's a mess. I don't even like looking at it. It's like you want to be friends with everything in your room. So then you start to clean it up, and then your family's so chaotic, they come in and cause trouble and they bug you and they ask you who the hell you think you are and what you're doing and isn't that stupid and who cares about your bloody room and why are you obsessing about that? Then there's fights because you're trying to improve yourself and they're not, so you're casting them in a dim light. And what you find very quickly is that by trying to do something right, one thing right, you touch on everything in your life that's wrong. Anyways, you try to put your room in order, and then you're married, so you have to put the room jointly in order, and then you have to negotiate. And you might say, well, my wife wants this here, and I want that here, and now we have to compromise. And I would say, no, negotiation towards compromise is only necessary when the negotiation is suboptimal.
Okay, I'm going to pause here. Negotiation towards compromise is only necessary when the negotiation is suboptimal. I think that oftentimes the situations where negotiation is necessary sometimes also needs to be an opportunity for you to practice preference with your partner. And I know that sounds very cliche, but some of these hills that people decide to die on are just terrible hills to die on. I mean, his earlier example where the scissors go, like whenever you get married with somebody, you own one another's everything. You're in it for the long haul with that person. You're not leaving no matter what. You're living together and sharing every, material possession. All of these things, these things are going to pop up, like he's saying. So I think oftentimes those situations are times where you can express something, a thing that you think would improve the quality of your marriage and the quality of your home. Like, hey, babe, I think we should put this here. Hey, I think this should go here. But there's always a but there that I think is really important. I'm not going to assert that opinion so much that our connection and the peace of our union suffers. I'm not going to push so hard on this issue that you have a different perspective on, that our quality of connection goes down. And I'm never going to, put my selfish interests, my opinions, my perspective on what is right so extremely in your face that I push you away from me. I'm going to bring you towards me. I'm going to connect with you no matter what. I'm not going to break this union. That's what being one under Christ means, I think. That's what being one, made one by the Father means, and becoming one more and more every day. I think that's that mystery Paul talks about. Because you just gotta, those little tiny things are going to come up. I'm trying to think of literally a practical example of a time where Lainey and I have had some difficulty around a small issue or something and how we solve that. But I will tell you one thing though, Lainey and I don't really have, and I don't even have to share any personal details about my marriage with you, but I'm going to in this case because I think it might potentially help some of you. We don't pick, we do not, the young kids would probably say we don't sweat the small stuff, but I would say it like we don't allow problems to become more important than our connection with each other. That's how I would say it. So if I don't like a way that our household is functioning, I am never, ever, ever going to allow that problem I have with the way our household is functioning to trump my connection with my wife. I'm not going to mess up my connection with my wife just to get what I want in that particular area, even if it's better than the way it's currently functioning now. Okay. So let's say, Lainey and I don't have a lot of fights in that way because I will say something like, and she will do the same. Like, I don't really like it when, you do this, or I don't like it when we put this here, or I don't like it when we go to this thing at this time, or I don't like it when you blank. And we put it out there. We voice it. We let the other person know that we're kind of having a hard time with whatever A, B, or C it is. But if A, B, or C, for whatever reason, is having a hard time resolving itself or being resolved, I am never going to, sort of punish my wife for that, or never going to pick a fight with my wife for that, or allow disrespect in my tone or the way I talk to her in my words because I don't like the solution that's being proposed or the negotiation that's being worked towards. Never. And she is the exact same way with me. We're both very agreeable people, I think. So we don't really, there are pluses and minuses to that, obviously. But one of the pluses, I think, that I hope will help the quality of your future marriage is that you don't need to assert your will so much that you're harming your partner and you're harming your ability. That's a bad way of saying it. You don't need to assert your will so much that your quality of connection with your partner goes down. Your quality of your connection with your partner should always be going up. Okay? It should never be going down. If your connection with your partner is going down, you need to do whatever you need to do to get that connection back going up. Because when it starts going this way, that's where people start that's where even people who are never heading for divorce, they're just going to live a miserable marriage together until they die. Like, you don't want to live that way. You don't want to allow the problem, whatever the catalyst problem was, you don't want to ever allow that to become such a big issue that you're sacrificing your connection with your wife for it, man. I mean, just let it go. Is it a bigger deal than Is getting your way on whatever it is a bigger deal than having a strong connection with your wife? The answer should be an emphatic no on your end. Absolutely. And I don't care how, passionately you want this selfish thing, or how much you want to do this thing, or how much better it is than her way, or whatever the crap you're telling yourself. I mean, again, and are you the source of truth here, or is Christ the source of truth? Okay? Are you the way, that the truth, and the life, or is Christ? So don't act like your way's it and her way's not on all this stuff, because I'm just like, you're just advertising that you are a selfish individual who cares more about your way than the preservation of your union. That's what you're saying, and the quality of your union. And so I would say, just don't allow these small little things to become a bigger issue than your connection with your partner, and regardless of what they are.
Here's the advantage to having a partner. So imagine you have some notion of what you want and need, and then they have some notion of what they want and need, and it's not the same, because it's not going to be the same. And so then you start talking and you think, well, I can give a little here and take a little here, and you compromise and you both walk away and you kind of got what you wanted, but not quite. And so you sort of begrudgingly go along with it, and it's better than a war, but it's not as good as the following alternative, which would be, why don't you talk about it deeply enough so that you now jointly construct a vision for how that space could be. Maybe it's your utensil drawer, which, by the way, you use 3 times a day and you will use for the rest of your life, so it's not trivial. And you think, how could we set this up that's better than either of us initially envisioned?
That is a great question. Do you see how he phrased that? That was a great question. How can we set this up so that it's better than either of us envisioned? That is an awesome question to ask for a marriage. Compare that to the, your average, what's the word? Presentation of the healthy life being, self-indulgence, self-care, taking care of yourself. You do you, YOLO, you only live once. Don't let someone trump your voice. Your perspective matters more than anything. All of that crap. And I'm not saying that you should, what's the word, roll over and just let your partner steamroll you. Because again, if that were the kind of situation you're finding yourself in, I don't think that's a good marriage anyway, because one person's not out for the benefit of their partner. They're out for the benefit of whatever, selfish interest they had. They're not laying their life down for their partner like Christ laid his life down for the church. They're interested in A, B, or C that they want. Okay, so let's throw that scenario out the window, because that's the scenario everyone's mind goes to. When I say, hey, it's a great thing to submit to each other, everyone goes, you can't be telling people that. You'll have people getting just absolutely trucked by their thoughtless spouses. And it's like, well, if every marriage is full of thoughtless spouses, people who only care about what they want, then this show's pointless anyway, and nothing I say is going to matter anyway. But I will tell you for darn sure, when I practice laying down my life for Lainey, like Christ laid his life down for the church, and not insisting on everything I want, and actually putting her first and doing what she needs and looking out for her and taking care of her, my marriage is a lot better than when I, what's the word? Choose my own way instead of submitting to my fellow believer. Okay? So I would say submission is a great thing, okay? And it's the exact opposite of what's being presented as a good idea, according to, culture. And this is one of the reasons, I would argue, that the marriage rate is so low today, is because people are after their own interests, and they don't want to lay down their life for their partner in any way. They think that their life is actually going to be happier for them from a selfish perspective if they just do whatever they want, instead of learning to negotiate, as Jordan Peterson would say, and lay your life down for your partner, as the Bible would say. Okay? And it's not. Here's the beauty of it. It's like when Jesus says, whoever, loses his life for my sake finds it. And whoever finds his life for his own sake will lose it. It's like if you chase the happiness, it gets away from you, man. You chase if you think your life's going to be happier just by doing whatever the heck you want, you're not going to have as happy a life as if you would discover the joy of service and the intrinsic reward that comes from putting your partner first. Okay, and doing what she needs or he needs. Okay, and people are so busy chasing what they want and living it up, as they say, that they're they're just choosing to avoid marriage, and there are all kinds of consequences coming from that. But if you don't believe me, look at this chart here. Figure 1.4, U.S. marriage rate closed to all-time low in 2021. Number of newly married people per 1,000 unmarried Americans ages 15 and up. I wish he would have put 18 and up because that's when you become an adult here. But I do know that this is a stat that I've seen him use elsewhere, that 79% of adults ages 18 and older were married in 1960, and now 49% of adults ages 18 and older are married. So even among the adults, it's kind of the same stat here. You've got, in the last, let's see here, 1960, in the last 65 years, okay, the amount of people who have married has dropped let's see here, 40%. No, 30%, sorry. 40%. We went from 80% of adults being married to less than half, 49% of adults being married. It's almost 50. It's really more like 30%. But still, that's a big drop, okay? And again, some of that is due to this individualistic, you do whatever the heck you want to be happy type of teaching and thinking that is really not accurate. Okay, you can see right here in 1960, we had 8, on this chart, it actually might show it. 1960, you have 80% here. It hit the high between these years in the years 1970, where 85.9% of adults were married, and then it's steadily fallen. And there were, I'm sure, the birth control pill, the ability, contraception, the ability of people to control, children and all kinds of things. The sexual liberation wasn't very liberating, if you ask me. It was more like a sexual, roller coaster, train wreck type thing, but whatever happened somewhere in here. So you've got, marriage to continue starting to go down. 1990, it's down below where it was in 1960. By 2000, it's way below. 2010, even further below, harsh drop from 2000 to 2010 to where we find ourselves now, at least in the year 2021, being like 30% right here. 30.5, not percent, sorry, 30 out of every 1,000 unmarried Americans ages 15 and up. So again, do I think this is good? No, I don't think that the majority of people are going to live the happiest life for them possible if they choose to remain unmarried. But that is what people are choosing to do compared to 1960. I think it's, one of the reasons that we have a lot of the problems in the world that we do, namely the children growing up to be dysfunctional adults because they weren't raised in a healthy home. But that's just a little bit of data here for you. And I don't think it's the way, guys. I don't think it's the way. And let me know if you disagree or anything like that. But that's just a little information for you on how many people today are choosing the road of marriage. And kind of one of the reasons, there's obviously the sexual revolution and the pill and all that. But one of the reasons people are choosing not to get married today, I think, is this preservation of the self, this selfish, I'm going to do whatever my selfish interests are, no matter what you say type thing. And it doesn't get anyone anywhere good.
So how can we mutually craft a vision together using our different perspectives so that what we're aiming at isn't a compromise, but it's a synthesis of our needs and wants that's preferable to our original vision? And then you think, well, why not aim for that? And you think, well, that's not practical. It's like, that's wrong. This is really practical. So one of the things I do in my business arrangements, to the degree that I'm capable, is I don't sell, I don't push, except when I'm not operating properly. I ask and invite. And what I want is for everybody to walk away from the discussion thrilled. Like really, actually thrilled. Yes, I'd love to do that. That would be great.
That's great.
And so why is that set?
That's a great goal to have, because again, peace is staying in that outcome. Peace is present in that outcome. Everyone's walking away happy. Your wife's walking away happy. You're walking away happy. Everyone involved in the situation is walking away happy. That's what you're aiming for, right? If you want to be a peacemaker, if you want to inherit the earth, if you want to see God, as Jesus would say in the Beatitudes, I mean, you're going to want a peace to stay in the situation. You're going to want peace to stay in your marriage. You're going to want peace to stay in your home. You're going to want peace to stay wherever you're at. So if you want peace to stay there, what he just said, trying to strive towards a goal where everyone walks away thrilled to bits, is, I would say, a godly strategy. Let me know if you disagree with me, but again, I think that's awesome, and I think that would do wonders for your future marriage if you take that advice.
Such a good negotiation. It's because, well, you can just leave the other person alone then. It's like if they're thrilled and they're 100% on board and you fleshed out a shared vision, they're just going to run off and work like mad on that, and unless there's barring idiocy and sin, let's say, but course, that's always going to come along for the ride. They're going to be maximally motivated. And so what you want to do in your household is you want to go into every room, every nook and cranny, and I mean every one. And you want to have a negotiated settlement for how that's going to be set up. And you both want to be thrilled with it. And that's just a matter of putting everything in order, everything in its proper place. Nothing too trivial to attend to. Nothing too trivial to fight over. Now, you're going to live in that house. You're going to be in it day after day. And a lot of these mundane things repeat, and they have to be got right. When are we going to eat? What are we going to eat? Who's going to cook? Who's going to serve? Who's going to clean up? Who's going to pack the dishwasher? Who's going to unpack the dishwasher? Who's going to clean the toilet? Who's going to scrub the floor? Who's going to mow the lawn? And you either negotiate those things consciously and in good faith, or you fight about it underground with your hands around each other's neck, stupidly, for 30 years, and nothing gets done right, and you get old.
And in that scenario, you're not on one another's team. You're not laying your life down for one another. You're not serving one another. You're serving yourself. You're making that desire you have for your home more important than yourself. This is an interesting figure that I wanted to throw in here too. Figure 5.1, more husbands and wives embrace family first model of marriage than soulmate model. Basically how Brad Wilcox describes the soulmate model in his book is this idea of making sure that you're happy no matter what in your marriage and pursuing what you want no matter what in your marriage and making sure that your feelings with your partner are the way you want them to be. And you get what you want all the time and you feel good about where you are all the time. People who have that kind of mentality, thinking that that's what's important in their marriage, end up actually being less happy. Okay. And this goes exactly like what Jesus talks about. The guy who's trying to get his life loses it, and the guy who lays his life down finds it. If you're after, laying your life down for your spouse as Christ laid his life down for the church, serving one another, okay, submitting to one another, greater love has no one than he who lays down his life for his friends. If you're doing all that, you're going to be happier. The happiness just comes, okay? That's the result. That's the fruit of the good action, okay? And let's look here at this model here. People who what's the word? I want to be very careful with how I'm wording this because the measurement falls apart if I don't. But more husbands and wives embrace family first model of marriage than the soulmate model, okay? Share of husbands and wives who embrace the family first model versus the soulmate model. So basically the people who said that the foundation for their marriage was intense emotion and romantic connection, only 27% of them said that. Okay, the large percentage here, 73% of these couples said that kids, money, and raising a family together was the foundation for their marriage. And I think that that's better with some caveats though. I think that again, when you're laying your life down for your partner, when you're not allowing peace to leave the situation and you're not fighting for your way, and demanding that your way be the road taken in your marriage, then the peace is going to stay there. You're going to be a peacemaker, like Jesus talks about in the Beatitudes. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will see God. There's good promises that accompany this. Okay, I think more people are doing that. More people. What's the word? More husbands and wives embrace family first model than the soulmate model. If it's just about you feeling good about your connection with your partner. Love, in other words, the way Brad Wilcox says it, love for as long as it makes me feel happy, that selfish language there, only 27% of couples are about that. That's not the foundation of their marriage, okay? Most people here, and this is based on married adults ages 18 to 50, and the source was the IFS California survey in 2019. And they were probably asked a question like, what is intense emotion and romantic connection the foundation for your marriage, or is kids, money, and raising a family together a better model for your marriage? Now, I would change a couple of these things. I don't think that necessarily that money needs to be factored into that. I think that really the key here is that if you're interested in the preservation of the union and the strength of your connection with your wife above what you personally want, and not about making you happy, but about what's best for your marriage, and not about getting what you want, but about laying your life down for your partner, those are the people who are going to have happy marriages. And I think that the majority of marriages that last are going to have that as a key factor, not somebody who's trying to figure out, to pursue what they want and to, lay down their spouse's life for their interests. But instead, the people who have marriages that last will often lay down their life for what's best for their union, what's best for their partner. Okay, definitely really cool. Check out that chapter. It's in chapter 5 of Brad Wilcox's book, Get Married. Really good chapter. I remember that one. It was fun. Let's continue with Jordan Peterson though. If the video
those are the options.
There you go.
And so you think, well, I don't like conflicts. Like, you don't like thinking, you don't like negotiation, you're not very good at it. The alternative is this tyranny or slavery or chaos. It's like, get good at it. And how do you get good at it? Aim up, be honest, say what you want, and be willing to listen, because you're stupid, and what do you know? And maybe the other person can correct you, so you don't have to run flat out nose first into a brick wall.
Like, have you ever been wrong? Just ask yourself that question. Have you ever been wrong? You should answer yes there. If you're not answering yes there, again, you're probably seeing a lot of bad fruit in your life. But if you've ever been wrong, you need to perhaps consider the possibility that you might be wrong in the future. Okay. And that your spouse might have something positive to contribute to this relationship, and that your spouse might be right on this issue, and that your spouse might be the voice of God here telling you that maybe your selfish ambition and your selfish interest is not the road that leads to life. Just consider it. Okay, that's all I'm asking. If you go into marriage with a humble attitude, with an attitude that, I'm not the final authority, I'm not the source of truth. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. I'm not gonna what's the word? I'm not gonna lay down my wife's life for me. I'm not gonna shove her in front of me as a meat shield. I'm not gonna, use her to get what I want. I'm not gonna make her sacrifice and me give nothing. That's not a marriage. That's not a union. A strong marriage, one that lasts, is one where you're not fighting for your personal interests. It's one where you're fighting for the preservation of the union. It's one where you're fighting for the strength of the connection that you have with your wife. That's what you're fighting for. If you're fighting for that and you're unified in your goal to fight for that, my friend, you are destined for an awesome marriage. That's really what it comes down to. People who have failed marriages are really people who said, or even unhappy marriages, are people who have said or are currently saying, I value this thing, whatever it is, more than my connection with you. And so I'm gonna, smash through anything and everyone, including you, to get what I want in this area, instead of I'm gonna protect our connection from anything that could potentially get in the way. And that's what God has designed marriage to be. Okay. Hope you guys have enjoyed listening to this episode. We only made it 10 minutes in, so hopefully we can finish this one in about 2 or 3 episodes, maybe. This episode of Jordan Peterson's. Again, this was his negotiation video of his marriage series that is currently only available to subscribers of the Daily Wire. So I subscribe so you don't have to, and I'm reviewing this now so that you can listen to it. Hope you've enjoyed. If you have, reach out and let me know what you thought of this episode. There's a link in the show notes. I would love to hear from you. It would make me feel super connected to you as an audience member, and it would make the podcasting system two-way. You can also follow the Restoring Rapport podcast on Instagram and Facebook if you're interested in the content we post. By the way, the voice message link, I don't know if I said that a minute ago or not, but that is no longer there. I say this all the time, but go send us a voice message on either Facebook or Instagram, or comment on YouTube. That's the way you can make this a discussion instead of a monologue. So thank you guys so much for listening today, and I will talk to you all next time.